our main presenters and what we all came here for today's webcast. And first, I'd like to introduce John Bassett. John is the CISO CTO and Executive Vice President at GSI. John is a highly experienced IT specialist. John has over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity, software engineering, network management, system implementation, and enterprise application technology. John is a certified CISO and ISO 27001 lead implementer. He's a graduate of The Ohio State University and is based in Mansfield, Ohio.
Thanks.
Go ahead, John.
No, I just said thanks.
You are welcome. And we're also very pleased to welcome Pradip Pandey from Oracle. Pradip is the Chief Software Architect and Security Head for JD Edwards Applications at Oracle. He has 27 years of experience in software requirements, architecture, design, implementation, testing, security and performance, and scalability of enterprise applications deployed either in the cloud or on-premise. Pradip is the inventor of 18 technology patents and is a seasoned technology leader and technology advisor. Pradip works with the global distributed development team, support team, customers, and the partner community. And really pleased to welcome both John and Pradip for our presentation today. Now let's get into the heart of it. Our focus today, today's presentation will include the 10 topics you see listed on our screen. We're going to lead off with Pradip, and he's going to talk about unified identity and access solutions. Pradip, take it away.
Thank you, Bill. Welcome, everyone, on this session. So Oracle JD Edwards has provided entity cloud service integration with Enterprise One in OCI. You basically have to set up your additional layer of authentication authorization through IDCS, and then it provides a comprehensive security and entity management, and it is available to integrate with JD Edwards HTML server, where IDCS provides single sign-on capabilities for the web client. Single sign-on is also integrated with Oracle Content Experience Cloud Service with web client, so you can review the media objects stored in the Content Experience Cloud once you logged into web client without a separate login into the CEC cloud. IDCS is also integrated with JD Edwards AIS server to support both OAuth 2.0 inbound support as well as support OAuth 2.0 outbound from AIS. Single sign-on capabilities are also available through a mobile login and web browser login. And this architecture diagram kind of summarizes the high-level integration touch point for IDCS with JD Edwards. Next slide. Now, to complement that IDCS and OCI, Oracle Cloud Inspector, we also have got Oracle Access Manager support for JD Edwards on-premise deployment, where we certify OAM 12214. It provides a high level of security across applications, enables the right level of access to each user groups. Single sign-on enables user group access to access multiple applications after a single login using a shared token. Enables distribution of admin tasks based on admin level access versus end user access. Provides flexible and a detailed reporting, auditing, and logging feature in Oracle Access Manager to audit events for JD Edwards traffic. Again, the architecture diagram explains the different employees, partners, and customers coming through the entity server and to get access to JDE, and then we provide single sign-on access for authentication and authorization and auditing for our HTML server, collaborative server, and portal servers. Next slide. Okay, back to you.
Pradip, our next security measure, we're going to have John speak on email security and endpoint protection. John, take it away.
Thanks, Bill. Just want everybody to know I have a little bit of a sore throat, so I got a scratchy voice, so in the background you might see me taking a drink of water in between this. We wanted, we're talking about securing your JD Edwards system, but one thing that we want to do talk first at a high level about email security, because it is the #1 method for successful hacking in this world right now. It still remains that. So we'd like to at least offer what we see all of our clients doing. Tools like Exchange Server, Office 365 do have advanced threat protection. And you can either do that through Microsoft or even adding on top of that Proofpoint. They are, link scanners and attachment scanners. You can block all links and attachments if you want to. I proposed that at GSI and kind of got stared at. It's like, why would you do that? Like, well, if you can't click on anything bad, you're not going to get hit, or at least, less likely to get hit. So, and a lot of these new tools provide, the email solutions provide encryption, secure transfer, et cetera. And then also you need to be looking at your endpoint protection. We're going to talk about one more specific endpoint protection as a separate slide item. But, companies like Sophos, SentinelOne have that 0-day prevention, which is important. Things that happened to you in the past, the common vulnerabilities or CVEs, they're great. You have to protect against them. But what about the new threats that don't really care to, they try to get around all of that. And the 0-day tools, the EDR endpoint protection, do prevent against that. One thing I forgot to add to this slide is multi-factor authentication. I know it's annoying. Every week or so you get that prompt to authenticate. It seems to always happen right when you're in a rush to get an email. But with MFA enabled for those for your email, it will greatly enhance your security. A lot less likely to be hacked. And so we do want to say most of our clients now are utilizing that, especially for external access. Next slide. So now within JD Edwards, recently Oracle has added a very big feature to this, and that is using secured SMTP. So basically what that is for things like workflow, type of emails. You configure it inside of JDE, allows you to use secure transfer between the messages. So even if you're on the network, you won't be able to make heads or tails of the message unless you have the secured keys, which is not likely. Helps you avoid man in the middle and or spamming of JDE type hacks. I'm going to skip going into all the email because we will be a little short on time, but just a graphic of how it works.
My slide, I think. Can I talk on this? Sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, John. So like John said, the whole idea was from as a JD Edwards security head and security lead, a lot of customers have been asking this for years and years and years to secure the traffic so that we do not allow sniff emails from JD server to email servers. So we have to implement a new feature which was released with 927, release 23, to encrypt the pipe between JD Edwards server and the email server. One of the goals to do this was to support Microsoft 365, like John said. It will not allow to connect to Office Microsoft 365 Exchange without encryption, because by default, Microsoft Exchange 365 requires encryption to be on. So that was one of the motivation or requirement to fulfill this, implement this feature, which is 20 years old, enhancement request forever, eventually get to see the light. And the way it implemented is we're using a TLS protocol on top of SMTP protocol, so that we encrypt the data over the wire, authenticate the data from the client, and server side verifies the data, also verifies that the email data is not tampered over the wire, the integrity of the email. And again, tools like Wireshark, which can be used to sniff your data over the wire, will be prevented because we encrypt the data over the wire. So man-in-the-middle attack using tools like Wireshark will not be able to see your email when it is going across JD server to the email server. Again, his goal is to prevent spamming of emails from JDE into your mail servers. Next slide. Again, the way it is implemented is we have got a configuration which has been added for SMTP authentication setting in Server Manager console, where you have to now key in the SMTP username and SMTP password, which can be set in the Server Manager console settings. When the enable authentication is set to true, the SMTP user password is filled in the settings page, and this is primarily to set up the email for SM console's monitors. So if you know, Server Manager console has a monitor feature to monitor events like server going up, going down, number of users exceeding a threshold, long running UVEs, zombie kernel. All of those emails will now go through a secure communication from your SM console to your mail server. Next slide. To add on that, we also have another interface to email server outside Server Manager monitor is from the enterprise server, where all the workflow emails and notifications are running in the enterprise server. So we allow you to have a Server Manager configuration for the enterprise server, where you have to key in the SMTP username and password for in the JD INI settings of the enterprise server from Server Manager. And then you have to fill in the user password values in the settings page so that when you are sending workflow emails and notifications, it will be going from enterprise server to email server through a secured TLS SMTP protocol. Next slide. And the options are available here. We have got a none, so you can still run non-secure. We still support that. But if you decide to go secure on the SMTP protocol, we provide two options. One protocol is called a start TLS. And the other option is called SSL over TLS. And these two options are given because some of the mail servers like Exchange supports one of the protocol, and then some other mail servers like IBM Domino or others, they support others. So we make sure that we cover the supported mail servers from JD Edwards to go secure over to the mail server. Next slide. So this is the other place to configure the Server Manager consoles where you can set up the email authentication, and it is going to show up in your user interface under the server activity rules. So you have another place where you can go and enable this and then key in your password to get the SMTP configurations. Next slide.
Okay, well, John, Pradip, thank you. Pradip, we're gonna keep going with you. Pradip next is gonna cover JD Edwards patches and updates.
Just want everybody to know all of those lovely section headers were generated by Midjourney AI.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you, John. So again, continuing. Oracle JD Edwards follows a process called Oracle Software Security Assurance Program, where we encompass continuous improvement of process, procedures, and technologies to meet our customers' security requirement, which is evolving every day, every year, nonstop. The goal is to provide the most cost-effective ownership experience to our customers, and also provide secure posture for our customers' environment. Next slide.
I did get a question in there. Someone might not be able to see the slides very well. John, Pradip, can you see everything?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So
Perfect.
Okay. Well, let's keep on going. Hopefully that was just a momentary issue.
Yep. Again, continuing on that, so we are applying the OSSA process for the entire software development lifecycle for JD Edwards product development. So it applies to the entire lifecycle. It's evolving constantly to keep up with the new technologies, new threats, and new product use cases from security perspective. We have a security requirement in the design phase of any feature or in the JD Edwards. Plus, we have got secure coding and secure testing guidelines and standards to implement and test a feature for JD Edwards. And finally, we have a secure and a malware-free deliverable when we upload our software to the update center, e-delivery, or the cloud marketplace. Next slide. So as I say, continuing, we are doing. I think we went backward, Bill. Go
All right,
forward.
my apologies. Let me go forward here and next one.
Yeah. So apart from following these proactive security measures as a process, we still have chances that we'll not be able to catch all the third parties and our product securities. So we have got a remediation practice to handle security vulnerability. And we use the Oracle critical patch update process for every Oracle product line, including JD Edwards and database and Linux and WebLogic and Java and others. So CPU is the primary mechanism for all our security patches for customers under active Oracle support. Security alert advisory is announced, which includes patches for the product and third parties for exploitable critical issues that are public knowledge. The benefit of this process is to provide a maximum security to a customer, identify any architectural vulnerabilities, predict lower admin cost, and simplified patch management. It provides a predictable CPU release calendar every quarter. We tend to release on a Tuesday close to 17th of January, April, July, and October. Again, critical patch update and security alerts and bulletin can be found in this Oracle security alerts page. Next slide. So again, this slide shows some of the critical patch update schedule since last 5 years. You can see that we have been announcing since July. We had one in October. I didn't update the slide, October 23, but it goes all the way back to 18. So you can always go and click these links and get the security patches. Next slide. So for JD Edwards, in the October CPU, we have only one bug, one CVE announced, which was tied to this deployment server. We have a list of vulnerabilities coming up in our January release, CPU release. So we'll talk about that once they come out. Next slide, Bill. So going back, so you can see some patterns of CPU. One of our goals is to keep the CPU list lower by doing proactive security fixes, but we announced the publicly exploited vulnerabilities. So in July, we had 4 vulnerability announced. 2 of them were on the web servers like AIS server and HTML server, and one of the vulnerabilities around the one-click provisioning of JD Edwards installation. Next slide. April CPU was large because we had update release, and we have got CPU announced with a couple of CVEs, which spans over the enterprise server, the deployment server, HTML server, AIS server, server manager, and one-click provisioning, and our Vault product, apart from Enterprise One. So the pattern of this CPU release is tied to the JD release calendar. So if you release the web packs, you will typically see the vulnerabilities around the web areas like AIS, Jazz. And when you do the update release or the full pack release, which is twice a year, you will see a bigger list of CVEs announced. Next slide.
Thanks, Pradip. Next, we are going to have John talk about the important topic of backups. John?
Yeah, wanted to make a quick comment on the previous slides. That is when you get up to the 928 timeframe, if you're talking about JDE specific upgrades or patches, not around the middleware, not around the OS, not at the database layer, but at the JDE object layer. I can tell you there's some really cool tools coming up to help you remain code current, where they integrate Change Assistant, Update Manager, along with other things right into the web application, and life will be a lot better at keeping that updated. Also, object usage tracking and also impact analysis, and it's just really an amazing thing. Keep a close eye on it. It's been released. Oracle and a bunch of other places are going to be doing webcasts on what it is and what it means. Pradip's team did a great job there. Things that should have been there. Of course, we all think everything should have been there all along, but at least it's there now. Backups, and we wanted to include backups in the security of your system. If you're on some of the more modern tools releases and application releases, and you've migrated your objects to the database, your deployment server files, media object files, and print queue objects, strictly speaking, a JDE, not all of the third parties, you now could rebuild the system from just a database backup file. So assuming a hacker, a ransomware got into your entire and destroys your system, if you've got one of these immutable backups in your storage bin that you've tried, you can rebuild the system. Don't care about the golden images for enterprise servers and jazz servers. Yeah, it'd be great to have them make your restoration much more complete. But in the end, you want to make sure that you have defined a life cycle if you're using cloud technologies. Because if you have a life cycle, basically you predefine your backup, your company backup strategy. And if you do an immutable backup with a lock, it means not even with the tenancy administrator's password can you get in and destroy those backups. And there are other safe ways to do it, but this is the one we're recommending now, is to make sure that you back up your database files without a doubt. And if you want to speed up that recovery process, get your boot volume images created as golden and anything else that you feel is urgent backup. This is a topic for another webcast. But we wanted to make sure it is listed as one of the key things you want to do to protect your JDE system.
Thanks, John. Let's move to our next slide. Okay, Pradeep, our next topic is encryption.
Yes. Thanks, Bill and John. So we did one other announcement for security, which has been long due, for scheduler password encryption, where scheduler password encryption for refresher, we have user enters data through this P91-300 application, and the business function runs on a Windows client or enterprise server based on OCM to call some of the tools APIs to insert the record into the F91-300 table using the JD kernel code. At runtime, the scheduler kernel will pick up, running an enterprise server will pick up the records from the F91-300 table and then schedule the job. And the next slide. So the upgrade, the password encryption upgrade feature was scheduler record created with new code will use the site key encryption. Site key has been there for at least a couple of years. If old code, either tools code or apps code, it will continue to use the old encryption methods called triple DES or 3DES. The new scheduler kernel can schedule 3DES based encryption or new site key based encryption records. The part of the solution was design time applications, business functions, and system code changes, and runtime code is modified to work with the new encryption by scheduler kernel. Next slide. So the high level, the business functions were compiled with tools release 9273, which is where the feature was deployed and released. It will use site key encryption. If it is compiled with 9272 tools release or prior, the business function will continue to use the old encryption called triple DES. Next slide. Again, high-level design time system tools changes. So we have new APIs to be called by BSFN in the system code. Existing API was not modified to allow backward compatibility for customers. For existing API are called to modify records when site key is used. We log an error because you are trying to basically decrypt something which will not fit into the buffer with site key. So we raise errors if you are mismatching between encryption and decryption with old and new code. Next slide. At runtime, scheduler kernel is smart enough to detect the encryption types based on the data, and it will figure out to decrypt using site key or using triple DES encryption. Next slide. So order of updates, if you are implementing this feature, 9273, you have to have the runtime system code, design time system code, and ESU of the application and BSFN changes. For pre-9273, scheduler kernel cannot process records with site key encryption. Pre-ESU JN 20306, which has application changes, and pre-9273 system code cannot edit records with site keys. So you got to go to this 9273 and get this ESU to start using this new encryption for scheduler password. Next slide. Again, continuing the encryption journey for JD Edwards, we have a lot of requirement and customer request for over the years to encrypt the pipe from JD Edwards server to the database server. So transport layer security, TLS support has been added to database communications. So we secure communications between Jazz server and the database server with TLS encryption. This is supported for Oracle database, SQL Server database, IBM DB2 UDB database, and IBM DB2 IBMI database. SSL enablement for ODBC connections for development clients and deployment server and enterprise server to connect to the AS400 IBMI database. We also have enabled authorized and secure communication using TLS support in database. This basically prevents man-in-the-middle attack to sniff your SQLs or your user password for database connectivity, as well as prevent any data leakage or SQL injection attack, which can be performed on the pipe between JD server and DB servers. Next slide. So the way the configuration happens for transport layer security for database server varies by database vendors. For Oracle database, they require you to create a auto login wallet, import the CA signed certificate into the wallet, update the SQLnet ORA file with the wallet location and TCPS protocol, as well as update the listener ORA file with wallet location with the TCPS protocol and secure DB port, and then restart the listener. For AS400 database, you will be using CA signed certificate and install them using the IBM Digital Certificate Manager. Assign the CA certificate to this application, database server, and sign-on server. For IBM UDB database, you will be creating a KDB and a stash file, import certificates to the KDB file, and then update the following DB servers with the location of KDB stash file, secured port, TLS version 1.2 protocol, and some of the DB2COM registry values. And restart the DB instance. SQL Server, you'll be using SQL Server Configuration Manager to import CA signed certificate into the SQL Server DB and set the force encryption to false, and then restart the SQL Server instance to enforce the TLS connection from JD servers. Next slide. So in the server manager, we have this TLS support, and once you obtain the CA signed certificate from database server, you have to import the certificate into the database server, into the root and server and CA certificate into the Java key store of Jazz, RTE, Business Services, AIS, and Data Access Driver, deployed either in WebLogic or WebSphere, or in an interop client, which is installed on Java. So you have to use the key tool command and import these root, intermediate, and server certificates into the key store, which typically is inside the Java GRE lib security CSRts file. And you have to provide the location of the PEM files for the root CA, intermediate, and the server certificates. Once you do that, then you go to server manager configurations, database, JDBJ bootstrap, data source, TCP IP port, and to secure database port. And for interop client, since there is no server manager, you have to manually set the server port equal to the secure port for database into the JDBJ INI under the JDBJ bootstrap data source section. Again, once you do that, then you finally have to go to server manager and configure the database JDBJ runtime, use TLS configuration to true for Jazz, RT, BSSV, AIS server instances. And for interop client, you have to manually go and set use TLS to true in the JDBJ INI under JDBJ runtime properties. Also, make sure you update the protocol to TCPS and port to secure DB port in the TNS name ORA file for Oracle database. Next slide. Configuring TLS for ODBC connections only for AS400 database. So obtain the database server certificate, import the database server certificate, the root CA and server certificate inside the fat client or development server machine using IBM I access client solution. And then set the configuration database bootstrap use TLS to true for deployment server instance on server manager console. For a fat client, since there is no server manager, you have to manually add the use TLS to true under DB system settings in INI, JDINI, and then change the DB port in database data sources. Next slide. Back to you.
Pradeep, appreciate it. John, any comments before we move into the next topic?
No, Pradip covers that one in very good detail. So
Yes, he did. Yeah, I did want to mention we will be sending out the slides to everyone, as well as a copy of the recording, anyone that attended today's webcast. So don't feel like you have to be furiously copying notes and taking lots of notes here. We will, again, provide all of the slides for you as well. Okay, thanks, Pradeep. John is going to cover our next topic, which is comprehensive DNS and web gateway protection.
yeah, it's really two subjects. So we'll do what I can to talk about both. GSI and many companies that I've worked with has implemented a DNS protection tool, OpenDNS, DNS filter, Cisco Umbrella. And what we have found here is that 90% of any attack is caught by, we use Cisco Umbrella for us, and it catches almost everything before you even get an opportunity to click on something wrong. And it does it because what it does is Cisco Umbrella maintains a DNS, a name resolution, to IPs, and any known registered IP that is deceptive will get blocked. If you point your DNS to that, you'll get a little message saying, hey, you can't do that. You can't go there because of the site being nefarious. It's pretty good because anybody that has registered a name that is going to be used to attack you isn't going to get through. Now, it's not perfect, and the reason why it's not perfect is because it doesn't block IPs. If you go directly to an IP address, you don't have a name. You're just going directly to it and not using the DNS. Now, for those of you at home, and many of you here, the Cisco Umbrella is basically purchased OpenDNS, but OpenDNS is available to you. You can point your DNS entries to the OpenDNS IP addresses and get 90% of the value. What Umbrella gives you is awesome reporting and categorization of websites, because you can say, well, you know, we're okay with political statements, but we're not okay with pornography, or maybe you're not okay with both. So there's a little bit of better control if you pay for the product. It comes with the price, but for home where you don't want to spend a lot of money, just point your DNS to OpenDNS. DNS filter is another product. I like them. They're not quite the mainstream, but I've met with them. They're trying to get us to utilize their product, and I just haven't been motivated to do it because Umbrella has been so effective for us. Next slide. So web gateway solutions, basically known as secure web gateways, and if you move to a cloud solution, OCI has secure web gateways. There are a bunch of different tools. They kind of serve as intermediaries between users and the web. And Cisco Umbrella is a form of a secure web gateway. Gives you levels of control, monitoring, etc. It also allows you to do content filtering. I think we talked about the categories of politics and pornography that you want blocked. Gives you things like DLP, SSL inspection, and other URL filtering. I know I've been working with, like a solution called Checkpoint. My first implementation was in 1998. It's been around for quite some time. Not everybody does it. Can also be used to help you with bandwidth management. And I just listed a bunch of them down below. I've worked with Cisco Umbrella. Zscaler and Checkpoint, but there are plenty of others. There's some cloud native solutions that are available via Oracle. Next slide.
Okay. Well, John, thank you. Pradip, any comments on John's topic before we move on to our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure?
Yeah, like I said, John has a very good comprehensive list of tools and methods he listed out. Recommend to use those. They are the environment of JD Edwards, and anything you do to prevent the attack surface, reduce attack surface, and block attack surface is highly recommended, which is outside of the peripherals of JD Edwards environment. Highly recommended to go through those and implement those solutions like John mentioned. They're very important.
Okay. Well, thanks, Pradip. Thanks, John. We're going to move into our next topic, and Pradip is going to cover it. No better person to cover it, but he's going to cover Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Pradip?
Thanks, Bill. So Oracle Cloud Infrastructure has a bunch of security capabilities. If a customer decides to onboard JD Edwards and deploy in OCI, OCI is short form for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. It provides storage encryption at a block storage level, object storage level, file system storage, and data transfer service. So your data at disk is secured completely. It provides a key management solution where the key can be Oracle key or customer key, and they also provide key rotation services if your key is compromised. It provides identity access management, which provides user authentication, either using user password, API keys, and authentication tokens, depending on your interacting with OCI using the web console or REST APIs. It provides multi-factor authentication and also have features like instance level authentication for your virtual machine instance and other security controls. OCI provides physical security for the data center, personal security for data center, and also provides a compliance for all the OCI regions and all the services worldwide. Next slide. So security identity in OCI, key considerations is to have a segregation of duties by providing operational responsibilities and restrict access to cloud services, ensures JD Edwards and associated data assets are isolated across customers and within a customer across roles, establish data encryption at all levels, data at rest, data in transit through network, data at rest in the disk storage, achieve a workload and data isolation at the server level through a single or multi-tenant environments. Next slide. So OCI provides identity access management and auditing, where you have an Oracle console, where you get in and authenticate users using identity access management called IAM. And IAM supports also the API access, apart from the web console access, and customer can bring their own choice of console if they decide to use a custom console for OCI. And then internally, the IAM service will authenticate the user and use the credentials and tokens to authenticate against the virtual machines and containers in OCI, object storage, block volumes, database systems, and file storage. It also provides a capability to audit your activity through IAM. So you can provide kind of a telemetry service and a visibility of who is accessing what in OCI. Next slide. Isolation important to customers. So we provide isolated network virtualization, which has a secure virtual cloud network for cloud provider staff. There are different physical network segments. Always on encryption is used for using customer controlled keys. We provide external threat actors, prevent them using DDoS protection, hardware-based root of trust, top-up rack access control list, and then security automation using maximum security zone feature, Cloud Guard. Plus, we have additional security in autonomous database and autonomous Linux, where there is a continuous deployment of database patches and Linux patches as they are released. And finally, we have got different IAM compartments to support the requirement of different customer LOB applications. Next slide. Server isolation, multi-tenant and single-tenant environment. So again, we have virtual machines, compute SEPs, which are multi-tenant SEPs, which have security hardened and hypervisors for strong isolation between customers. Dedicated VMs offer single-tenant option, so you can decide between hypervisor or dedicated VMs. Bare metal compute SEPs has a single-tenant SEPs with no Oracle managed hypervisor. Oracle staff have no access to customers' memory or nor local NVMe storage while running in that configuration. Compute instances, security configurations, VM instances are architected with a least privilege mechanism. It is imperative to securely configure compute instances to maintain security of JD Edwards application running on them. Again, secure by default is the motto and the goal of Oracle for JD customers. Next slide. Networking and connectivity, key considerations. Again, we provide secure, high-speed connectivity between cloud resources and users and on our systems that require access. Maintain your security posture when running your business-critical JD Edwards and adjacent apps in OCI, utilizing cloud-native security in a distributed manner architecture or using a hub and spoke architecture. Next slide. So if you're designing a network using distributed architecture, then it consists of a virtual cloud network with Bastion host and load balancers, application database host spread across separate subnets, network subnets of the virtual cloud network within an availability domain. Multiple application instances are deployed in separate fault domains to ensure that the application is available even when an application instance goes down. In hub and spoke architecture, all traffic between multiple virtual cloud network spokes is routed through a central virtual cloud network hub and inspected by the security appliance like Fortinet, Palo Alto Network, and Checkpoint, etc. Each tier of architecture is deployed on its own spoke VCN. The hub VCN contains the security appliance, Oracle Internet Gateway, Dynamic Routing Gateway, Oracle Service Gateway, and local peering gateways to support the connectivity. Next. So in the architecture of networking and connectivity references, OCI consists of a virtual cloud network, and that's the main perimeter. Then they allow entrance through a Bastion host into your castle. And then there are internal firewalls behind Bastion host to prevent your castle of servers, and then provide fast connect or IPsec VPN to allow connectivity from your on-premise equipments or other access requirements. And then finally, it provides a load balancing to balance the workload across multiple virtual machines. Next slide. This slide is same as the last one. The only difference is now OCI added a new layer for security where it allows you to have VCN, firewall, load balancing, secure connectivity, and from internet and from your on-premise data centers. And then for your web applications, we provide an additional layer of web firewall, which was added recently. Next. So in the hub and spoke architecture, we're using security list in OCI, routing tables, dynamic routing gateways, Bastion host, local peering gateway, and OCI fast connect to achieve network security without compromising network performance. Next slide. One more feature we recently worked on is enhanced security for JD Edwards on OCI using OCI vulnerability scanning service. Again, this leverages the OCI scanning service for JD instances of web servers, enterprise servers, database servers deployed in OCI. It helps to identify and fix any security vulnerability. Faster identification of security issues introduced due to architectural customizations and integrations. Perform periodic scans over time to identify security issues on an ongoing basis. As new vulnerabilities are known publicly, this tool is enhanced to keep up with those vulnerability check. And finally, provides a secure and stable JD Edwards environment on OCI. Next. Finally, we have this optimized and secure deployment of in OCI with a flexible load balancer and web application firewall. So JD Edwards has been certified to leverage the flexible bandwidth provided by OCI, flexible load balancer to optimize the cost for customers to use load balancers, and also provides more scalable JD Edwards deployment on OCI using flex load balancer. It also provides OCI deployment from malicious and unwanted web traffic, internet traffic with OCI, web application firewall. So this is going to prevent malicious activity from your web client, server manager client, or AIS clients. The goal is to provide improved security posture for JD in OCI. Next. Back.
Thanks, Pradeep. We're going to move into our next topic, security questions for cloud providers, ISPs, integrators, etc. John and Pradeep, I know we're running a little bit tight on time, and we do want to allow some time for Q&A. So if I ask if you could give us the maybe 2-minute condensed version on our last 3 points here, that would be most appreciated. Thanks, guys.
This is one everybody can go back and read. So I'll just, the high level is I've had multiple people say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to a cloud or a private cloud. What questions should I be asking? And honestly, there's 50 of them. I have actually, I said 10, but there's actually 11 here. I'll let you read them. Bill, just skip, you can get the presentation and read them. Just skip to Pradeep's next one because they can read these just as easily as I can repeat them.
Hey. Thanks, John. Okay, Pradeep, our next topic is new JD with security features and roadmap.
Yes, thanks, Bill. So again, we are going through some of the other security features we did in our recent release. So we have a user security activity tracking, which is enhanced. This is a feature which is by default a SIM of JD Edwards, where we can track who is logging in, who is logging out. And the idea is to, this has been done for a while, we improved this same feature to have more details about the user tracking with information like what role the user logged in with, what environment, what path code, what release the user servers are on, and then additional info from the user like which client machine IP address the user is logged in from, which programs they're running JD Edwards from web client, from FAT client, from interop client, from AIS client, or third-party integrations like connectors, XML. So we get all the details now captured for a security officer at customer site to analyze this report. We also provide better visibility into user access from various client types, identify and block unauthorized access. If you see that somebody is logging into a system from Romania or from Philippines, and you have no business with Philippines, you can shut down those accesses. Better security decision making with UX1 dashboard and reports, so you get a visibility into your security activity. And again, the goal is to provide more security audit compliance and also help troubleshooting. Next. We also had a new feature where we provide enhanced authentication for data access driver, where we now support a token-based authentication for data access driver, which provides a secure data request without exposing user password credentials. It eliminates the additional information required for repetitive connections, as well as provides the efficient use of data access driver. And this is data access driver is the backbone to enable supporting complex queries through orchestrators and now logical extensions. So both orchestrator and logical extensions, Lex, is using data access driver to implement all the complex aggregation queries in database. Next slide. Password reset self-service feature has been released in 9.7, release 23. It enables users to reset their password on their own within minutes, eliminates dependency on system administrators, immediate access, minimizes impact on business operations. Again, system admins are freed up to focus on other high-value activities than helping to reset user passwords. Advanced notifications of impending password expiry, so you can get a warning and can basically fix those one. about to expire password resets. Next one is enhanced security for preventing denial of service attacks in JD Edwards. Again, HTTP requests do not complete in definite amount of time from the web traffic internet. Servers have been busy keeping resources waiting for the rest of the data. If server keeps too many resources busy, this can lead to denial of service. Possible reasons: you have a large request payload in the HTTP web request, you have a large request header, you have a large file, or you have got some illegal files you're trying to work with. Preventing denial of service attack in JDE can be achieved using a web server configuration to limit the HTTP request size, HTTP header size. Again, configure the web server to limit number of concurrent HTTP requests. Again, configurations to enforce a maximum limit on file upload size. Finally, enforce the legal file extensions to only allow upload download of whitelisted files to file types. And all of these are documented in the MOS and is recommended to be reviewed by customers and implement these features. Next. Key announcements. Again, I didn't cover a lot of things which happened in the past releases with 9.2, which went out 8 years back. We started with support of expanded user ID password, long user ID, long password feature, data encryption feature in database, enhanced local database password encryption, secure file transfer protocol for media objects, user-defined object security, database data source security, JDNet over SSL. When you are communicating between JAS and enterprise server, you need to secure the pipe, user security with orchestrations, and orchestration device whitelisting. In 9.2.1, we supported server manager and site key configuration, which is 6-7 years back. In 9.2.4, we had server manager secured communications for the JMX communication with SM console and SM agents. And in 9.2.5, we provided an automation feature to automate the transport layer configuration for server manager. Next slide. Roadmap for JD Edwards. So we are looking into AES 256-bit encryption. Right now, we are using AES 128-bit encryption. We just wrap up or finishing up auditing of shared table and objects in multi-path code environment. We are also working on automatic setup of trust store and key store for one-click provisioning, which we're going to leverage the server manager REST APIs for SSL TLS certification configuration to have a secure by default one-click provisioning. And finally, we are looking into certifying JD Edwards single sign-on with IDCS using the Microsoft Azure Cloud Active Directory as an entity provider. Next.
Okay, thanks, Pradip. And for our last topic today, we're going to have John, topics. We're going to have John cover cloud adoption framework and zero trust. John, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Pradip brought up some cloud designs for OCI. And sometimes GSI implements in non-Oracle. Unfortunately, it happens. And one of the tools that we have found to be a recommendation from CISO.gov and others is to follow the cloud adoption frameworks for the individual providers. AWS has one, Azure has one, and OCI actually has a cloud adoption framework. And if you follow that, we're finding that implementing a cloud native type of environment versus installing VMware provides a pretty secure, fast, and wonderful experience. If you follow the cloud adoption framework with, basically assuming zero trust, meaning, you don't have access to anything unless it's explicitly granted and controlled and monitored. So this is a safety feature. We know that JD Edwards fits in it. There's some things you have to understand about JD Edwards. If you start moving machines into different subnets, you could be paying some performance prices. You have to understand all those nuances in advance. So Bill, go to the next slide. We'll probably read through it. Okay, we'll go through this one and then we'll skip to the questions. Basically, zero trust just means don't trust anyone. You don't get in, you can't have server A to talk to server B unless it's been explicitly granted for them to talk. John Bassett's not allowed to get in and start getting direct access to the database unless I'm an assigned and approved DBA where you have change management and tracking. So next frame. So there are 7 key components to all cloud adoption frameworks. And I'm not going to go into these. We are out of time. You can read them at your leisure. This is something provided by CISA.gov, and it's no different. Next slide. And then the final slide. So again, this is something I've been saying. A lot of people have been saying it too. So I'm not the creator of this. But we heard that the statistics from Gartner is that 70% of all companies have had some kind of attack. So ultimately, it's not a matter of if you'll get attacked, it's a matter of when and how deeply you're influenced when that happens. Preparation is the key. Be ready to reduce the overall impact. Next.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Pradip. Appreciate it. I'm going to skip over some of the next slides so we can move right into our questions and answers. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time here. And I do appreciate John and Pradip. A lot of the questions that have been asked have been responded to, on in the Q&A chat, but there are a couple additional questions I did want to cover. So let me just skip ahead here until we get to our questions and answers. And I do have a couple of other follow-up questions. Questions from Fernando is, from speaking with customers, have you seen any specific attacks targeting JD Edwards recently?
We have seen targeted attacks that affect JD Edwards directly. The ones that have been the most painful that we have seen are attacks towards the hypervisor. VMware in particular, and it has brought JD Edwards down. Now, JD Edwards may or may not have been the target, but what ended up happening is these places had all kinds of things in place. Tested DR, and they also had CrowdStrike installed on the machines. They had all the right protections, except they had a little leak towards the VM. And there are some, like Black Cat is a very good targeted company that knows how to get at VMs, and they encrypted the VMs. So all of the protections in the world did nothing because they had their hypervisor exposed. And if you follow CISA.gov, you see continual posts on patching VM and targeting the holes. But if you're going to protect your infrastructure, make sure your hypervisor layer is protected, because that's really painful.
Just to add, thanks, John. From my experience, I talked a lot about JD Edwards security and CPU patches. They also talked about database patch, OS patch, and Java patch. I recommend customers and partners to keep up with the patches, not for JD Edwards only, the OS patch, Linux patch, Windows patch, as well as the WebLogic patch, database SQL Server patch, Oracle database patch, Java patch. I've experienced customers whose servers in the cloud, Oracle cloud or the cloud, got hijacked by the Java deserialization vector, where you can basically craft a bytecode and take over your server through Java, and then start doing Bitcoin mining or other mining while you are paying for your servers, for your JD Edwards, but they are being used without your knowledge for mining Bitcoin. And I've seen those real life examples with customers and partners. So again, the goal is to get the patches to prevent this kind of attacks, where the patches are designed and implemented to prevent penetrating inside your system, where you download software like database, Java, WebLogic, JDE, and using that to start spreading the attack through these downloads. So patches are very critical. So again, emphasizing it, keep up the patches.
Thanks, Pradeep. Thanks, John. I did want to mention, related to John's comment via the hypervisor, and this wasn't attacks on, people using JD Edwards, but it did hit their core systems. Clorox was attacked and they got at the hypervisor, and they reported on their 8K recently that they suffered basically a $500 million in lost revenue because of that cyber attack. And you're probably all familiar with the MGM attack where they got at the hypervisor. Ultimately, they got at the hypervisor, and it cost them $100 million in lost business. So great comments, Pradeep and John. Our next question comes in from Erica, and the question is, how do you see the new SEC cybersecurity reporting rules impacting companies? And that's a great segue into our webcast that we are doing on January 3rd on those new SEC cybersecurity reporting rules. But just kind of high level, just to kind of give you an idea of what those rules entail. That one is any material breach must be disclosed within 4 business days on your 8K. And then on your annual 10K filings, you must disclose your cybersecurity strategy and governance process, as well as your board proficiency. So really important rules that have been put in place by the SEC, and there's a lot of teeth in them. They are really out to get at and making sure companies have their cyber governance rules in place. There was a SolarWinds was attacked recently. Well, it was probably about 3 years ago, but their CISO, as well as the company, had fraud charges brought against them recently by the SEC. So again, a lot of teeth there. And if you're a private company, don't think you're out of the woods. You do a lot of business. You think of the supply chain. You do a lot of business with publicly traded companies, and the SEC is not afraid to go after the private companies as well. But then also those public companies, they're going to be looking downstream. Their software suppliers, their general suppliers and other partners, and how what their security posture is, because that's all that's going to impact them as well. So again, we'll be covering that in a lot more detail on January 3rd. Okay, well, that's the end of our questions today. Did want to mention, if you'd like to learn more how GSI can help address any of your cybersecurity needs, you can reach out via my contact information you see on the screen. Also, let me just shout out that contact information to you as well.